we want to be able to also look at our businesses from how much money do I want to keep, as opposed to how much money do I want on the top line. I felt like an OBGYN waiting for someone to call me that they were having a baby when I was first a real estate agent. Like, I just felt like on duty all the time. In real estate, there is an expectation that agents are to do everything. You're supposed to be your marketing, you're supposed to be your research, you're supposed to be the person who is doing everything. And it really slows down the productivity to focus in on the skills and the activities that actually make money.
Today's episode is brought to you by my friend Andy Bovender, the founder of the Bovender team out of the Carolinas. Him and his team have helped more than 5,000 families and have closed over $2.5 billion in transactions. So if you have that client, the friend, the family member who's been thinking about making a move to or from the Carolinas, they are the referral partners to call. Today, I sit down with Kathleen Metcalf, who is, she's a coach's coach. She is one heck of a powerhouse. She has been in the business for over 24 years and has been coaching for over a decade. And the tidbits, the nuggets, and the ideas she shares today will absolutely take your business to the next level. Get a pen and notepad ready. Additionally, she's so generous that she's offering a free one-on-one coaching session with her. If you scroll down to the description below and click the link, you can sign up for that. As well, I'm not sure if you've heard about it, but I have this little inner circle group mastermind, which is comprised mostly of past guests. And we meet 2 times a month, we talk shop, we share ideas, and we collaborate. It's also a phenomenal opportunity to share and pass along referrals. So if that's something you're interested in, look for the link in the description below. As always, I'm your host and San Francisco referral partner, 𝘠𝐿𝐿. Kathleen, welcome back.
Great to be here.
I want to just dive in. I feel like there's so much to start unpacking, and then we'll kind of backfill from there if you're game.
Yeah, I'm game.
So there's this really interesting invisible barrier for new agents getting into the business. And I know you and I both were talking about these stats that 70% of agents did 0 sales last year.
Yes.
Which out of 2.5 million agents, that's 1.7 million people did 0, which is wild.
Wow.
Like, it's a business did 0 transactions. It's insane. So let's dive in from there. What do you think it is?
So I think in real estate, there is an expectation that agents are to do everything. You're supposed to be your marketing, you're supposed to be your research, you're supposed to be the person who is doing everything. And it really slows down the productivity to focus in on the skills and the activities that actually make money. Mm-hmm. Right? Because the majority of an agent's time is spent in 4 areas: prospecting, lead follow-up, going on appointments, and negotiating contracts.
Right.
These are money-making activities.
Yeah. If you were to write a list, those all have a little $ next to them.
Right. PLAN, right, is the acronym. And so to be able to then look at, okay, where do you need leverage and where do you need skill so that we can have agents be as productive as possible, as fast as possible.
Mm-hmm. That's so interesting. And yeah, I mean, I think you make an immediate great point. If you just look at the different then cross sections of the business that we also have to manage, we're CFOs, we're CEOs, we're CMOs, which are, for every other company, those are entire roles that
Correct.
one person does, which spreads us immediately thin.
Yeah, so I think this opens up some conversation about what is the value of the brokerage firm that an agent chooses based on the services that are offered, based on the support that's available for those different roles. They still, right, we're still all independent contractors. We run our own businesses. We still have to manage our own money, right? We still have to be our own chief financial officer, but we can at least get good reports, right? We can at least have good bookkeeping so that it's easier for us to do that based on the reports that we get. But I think now that so much is happening in the brokerage firm world, it does open up the conversation of what are the important facets of the brokerage firm that you need, and how do you evaluate where you belong?
Yeah, which it's interesting, like just to observationally think of that. If there's a brand new agent, and I like, my first thought is, who's at fault? Which I don't really mean the word fault, but if somebody's not able to succeed and get that sale in 1 year, like, where's that lie? And then to your point, brokerage is a role. And I think that what the agent needs in that 1 year in is vastly different than that team lead who's got 25 people underneath them. And so the evaluating the brokerage role at that point it's a completely different set of problems you're trying to solve.
Yeah, because you may want a firm that offers a lot of training, a lot of different kinds of support, masterminds, role play, right? To be able to get involved, to build skill. Yeah. And you may later really need someone who has a sharp set of technology, who then has a great CRM, who is going to be able to offer you marketing support, who has templates for you to use, right? So because now you have production. But until you have production, then what do you need? And, you know, people often look at commission first, or what's the split? Well, the split is sort of the end of the pipeline. What we need in the beginning is we actually need to be able to have business, and then need to be able to have a brand and have a workflow that allows you to spend the most of your time in prospecting, lead follow-up, appointments, and negotiating.
I totally agree. And I think simultaneously, the wrong brokerage can be very noisy.
Say more about that.
They could be noisy, detracting you from those things. You know, going to meetings for meetings. You know, they're busy, they're noisy, and it's not. To your point, there's 4 specific things that you must be doing constantly. And if then any of the training is off of or away, pulling you away from that, detracting you from that, it's kind of noise.
And so then what's your fit, right? What is it? So this is definitely a topic that comes up with my coaching clients. I often have 2 or 3 a year at least that are considering changing their brokerage.
Yeah, and I think, you know, to pause on that really quick, I'm about, what am I, 10 years in the business? I think it's healthy to evaluate annually. Like, I think it's just it's a healthy thing to do. Is it still working for me? I'm paying a significant amount of money for this thing. Is it giving me the tools and advantages that I need? And I think that's a healthy. I think the same review should happen with team members, with employees, with your TC. I think it's a very healthy activity to build into your annual business plan.
Yes, because then you also are fostering appreciation for the things that do work well, the things that you need, that you like, and that you want to keep and maintain. And then also be able to evaluate, have things changed, and do you want to shift things? So if you then look at agents that sell, depending on where you are, tens of millions of dollars of real estate into hundreds of millions of dollars of real estate, right? You pay you pay tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands to your brokerage.
Yes.
And when you really look at that number, it also can be eye-opening to then evaluate, okay, how do I feel about the value, the return on investment, right, that I'm getting based on what it is that I need and what it is that I like. So if you like a really social brokerage, because it is lonely to be an agent, if you like the social element and the meetings and the trainings and the, open houses, parties, and, those kind of things, well then, okay, just recognize that that's a value to you. It may or may not make you any money.
I'd be willing to bet the hardest part of your day isn't the work. It's the mental load. It's the decision fatigue. It's the shuffling of priorities while you're already playing catch up. You're checking off things from your to-do list just as fast as they're getting added. And I'd also be willing to bet some of those meaningful business relationships you've had in the past have begun to fade. Ace Your Day is a physical deck of 52 strategic cards designed to halt fatigue. Refined by real-world results, this system replaces chaos of a to-do list with a curated set of high-impact actions. It's simple. Set a timer for 15 minutes, draw a card, and make your move. The deck handles the thinking, you drive the business. Building a secure business should not be a guessing game. Let's stop overthinking the day and trust a system that prioritizes connections and relationships. Let the deck handle the strategy, you focus on the results. Click the link in the description to reclaim your day, 15 minutes at a time. Yeah, and I think, that's a great way to look at it. And again, I think, if you take, to your point, whatever amount you're selling, there's definitely a cut going to the brokerage. But if you were to sit down and actually write a check for that price, would you be happy doing it?
Yeah, what is it worth to you?
We see it. It's a death of a thousand cuts. We don't see it all at one time. We see it in these little intervals. But if you were to write a check for X amount of thousands of dollars, would you feel it's equal and proportionate to what you're receiving?
Yes, because then the other side of the evaluation that I do with my clients is, okay, so what if you had a brokerage that didn't offer these same services, but you had to recreate these services? So you had to have a virtual assistant, you had to have a runner, you had to have someone that did other things for you. What do you think that would cost you? Because it's not nothing. And so would it be 10% less? Would it be 50% less? Would you want to manage it? Do you like the fact that they manage it and you just get to use it, right? So it's kind of like going through the buffet line as opposed to having to work with a caterer. You know what I mean? Like, it's a buffet line. It's so easy.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. It's a good analogy. Yeah, it's interesting. It's a choose your own adventure.
But the other element here about agents, often, as salespeople, we often have the idea that we could just sell one more thing. We could sell more to have more. So we just create this treadmill, this hamster wheel that we put ourselves on, right? And so I'm guilty too, because I'm a salesperson too, right? I mean, I sell real estate in Vermont. And so the idea being that we want to be able to also look at our businesses from how much money do I want to keep, as opposed to how much money do I want on the top line. True. And our industry is really famous for looking at the top line of the millions of dollars of real estate you sold, and hence, then the gross commission income that you earned. But it's really important, and this is something I learned in my coaching business kind of the hard way. After I didn't even coaching 3, 4, 5 years, I learned that I had 3 coaching clients over that time that were $250,000, $300,000, and $500,000 in debt to the IRS.
Holy jeez.
Now, I'm fortunate, so I get to often work with agents who are in the top 1% of the market. And so they make good money, but it's really easy to not have a system and to not get ready to pay your taxes. I mean, I was guilty my second year as an agent in San Francisco. I didn't calculate well. I didn't have a bank account that I saved things in, right? Yeah. And so that followed me around for a while. Because I had unlimited income potential. So I also, bring up these things because it's really easy to not have a system and get in the hole, even being wildly successful. So the idea is that we want to be able to look at a brokerage from, okay, what's the split? What are the services? What's the culture? Like, how do I like it there? And then how much money do I want to make and how much money do I want to keep?
Which I think is a great way to look at it, because you're right. We always look at, the big number and it's like, oh, amazing. But then when you take, the brokerage is taking a split, the TC's getting a piece, the government's getting a piece, your VA is getting a piece, your ops manager is getting a piece, and it's like this number just gets
And how much money do you spend on your listings, right? If you represent sellers, do you pay for staging? Do you have photography? Do you have video? Then you have marketing that you send out if you still do print mail, right? So then what does that look like? And what percentage of your commission do you want to reinvest into the deal, right? So I have clients I work with, like, okay, what if you did 10 to maybe 15% of your commission is what you spent on managing the listing? But it's easy to spend more.
Oh, it's way easy.
It's really easy.
And I have found, additionally, before I had rules around different price points receive different marketing, because a $5 million property it's a very different marketing process than $1 million property.
Yes.
Because everything's going to cost more. And so then you're just anyways, everything's going to change. But I think when you're in it, you get very emotional and excited and you're like, oh my God, we'll throw all these bells and whistles at it. But to your point, then you blow the budget that you never had. And now your net proceeds there's a big gouge in them. And so when we had rules at 3 million, this is how much gets invested. And then that all gets broken up into the different aspects of it. It made it just exponentially easier. And then it also takes the decision fatigue off the plate, because this is exactly the marketing campaign that's going to run.
Because there's a lot of temptation, right? And then the client as well might also have seen certain things and they think that might be productive for them, right? Even down to, and lots of my clients are generous. And so if something needs to be done, they want to pay for it. But it blows the budget, and it isn't always their responsibility to do the thing, but it might be their responsibility to connect them to the right vendor. So they need landscaping done. Doesn't mean you should pay for it. The house needs to be cleaned. Right? So cleaning can be $350, $750, $3,000, depending on what it looks like. Right? And so what is the gift you want to give at the end, and what is that budget? So really to be able to look at, because ultimately, if we're looking at helping agents be successful and make money as quickly as possible, so that their life is as easy as possible in that way. And I'm always looking for, how can agents have it all? How can they have production and still have a great life and make the kind of money that they need to make to care for their family? All the way up to the multi-million-dollar level, right? But to be able to evaluate these situations so that agents really are looking at, how do I spend the most time in money-making activity, and really to then look at, it is going to cost money to get leverage, but you're going to be able to do more transactions, or you're going to be able to raise your price point. But when you start to look at these numbers, and I recognize, right, I'm talking like a strong analytical today, and all my driver expressive agents might be having their eyes glazed over. I'm like, I don't know, I just do it. I just make money. I have money. It's fine, right? But the idea being that in order to have peace of mind and to be able to recognize you can get off the hamster wheel of sales at some point too, right? Because those of us who've been in the business a long time start to look at, all right, what does it look like to not be in production? It does mean that you need to keep money, invest money, so your money's making money for you.
Hey friends, I have a small favor to ask. For me to continue to bring you outstanding guests who share their best kept secrets for growing a successful real estate business, please take a moment and hit that like button so agents like you can find this content. And also hit that subscribe button now so you don't miss out on any new episodes. Now, back to our show. And I think that's the part we always stop considering is what does it look like when you exit? And we just get caught up in, well, I'll just do more production now, blah, blah, blah. And we don't worry about it. And you're right. We get way overly generous. And here's a really easy way to recognize if you are or not. But I used to give everybody home warranties, which I realized 90% of the time they don't even say thank you because it doesn't register as a gift.
It's a gift.
But it's around $500. When was the last time you gave your friend a $500 gift? Like, that's kind of an absurd amount of money, like, to be honest.
Yeah.
And it's like, and then when you do the math of, is it actually serving your business? Like, these people are already buying a property. Why are you buying them the home warranty? Do whatever you want with your business. Like, I'm not throwing shade, but I think there's better, more effective ways to market yourself after the fact with these group of people. But we as agents collectively, I think we spend very frivolously. And yeah, and I think for those who are glazing over and not minding their own business, someone else is minding it for them and they're losing money, sadly. And
so this goes back to this evaluation process, right? Of what are you earning? What are you spending? What are you keeping? And what is it worth to you? What is that value, both in what you've shared with the brokerage for offering the support? Because we do need them for compliance, right? I mean, unless you really want to be a broker on your own, and I'm not sure why. A lot of people would really want to take that on. For some people, they love it, and it's the way they want to run their business. But for most agents, right, we can appreciate that the brokerage takes on the compliance element of protecting us and protecting everyone involved. Great.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I always really deeply appreciate about you is you step back and you ask questions that really they always really make me think about things on a very different level, and it pushes me. And if I were to summarize what you're saying in reflecting on that new agent who has zero sales, I think if I were to apply that same principle to that, it would be, how are you defining success? And then once you understand, like, I need to get a sale, great. Only do that stuff. Don't do anything else. Only do that every single day.
Yeah.
Like your life depended on it. It's like if somebody said, I want to run the Boston Marathon. Great. Run today, run tomorrow, run the next day, run the day after that.
Take one day off a week. I ran a marathon.
Build in your rest day, make sure you're eating, but everything you're doing is that one goal. Like, you don't go to the rock climbing gym and then go to a hot dog eating contest and then go lay on the beach. Like, you do that one activity a lot of times. And so I think a big misstep with agents in general is we're always chasing someone else's success, but we never actually stop and define it for ourselves and then align what the heck we're actually doing with that thing itself.
Yes. And so your question is so well suited for, how do you define success? What does that look like for you? Then match your activities to that. And then from both a time and a financial perspective of reflecting on, right, being able to say every year, how did that go? How did that transaction coordinator work out? You know, and my specialty is in communication. So I'm always looking at, was there something we could have presented expectations differently? Could we have delegated differently? Did we ask enough of the right questions to get the result that we wanted? Because most people respond well in a working relationship. I mean, also in personal relationships, but to be able to, if you don't know, like, I don't know what my TC is doing, you should talk to them. You should ask them. Or you should have a meeting. You should say, but you know, it's amazing to me sometimes how agents just sit in the dark about what's happening on the other person's shoe, right? Like what's happening on their side of the street, when we really need to have a conversation. Talk to me about how you work. I'd like to be able to have updates from you more than once a week. Can you do that for me? Would that be an email, text, or a phone call, right? Like being able to ask questions and put out, this is what I need, and then how do you like to work? So you really can come to an agreement. But it's kind of funny, as the negotiators that we are, that sometimes those working relationships don't get ironed out well, and now we have conflict, and then agents want to keep everything back to themselves. Yeah. Which starts the whole cycle of not being able to have enough time to do money-making activity.
Which is interesting, because it kind of goes then back to the beginning of this conversation, is if 70% of agents aren't producing, it's like, who's at fault, right? Is it the person who doesn't know because they're new? Is it the brokerage, or is it the mentor?
And if there is one, right?
Which I would hope, and if there isn't, that means all those people who have produced and want to build, there's no easier time to find people on your team. And I would guarantee this, of the 70%, there's some really amazing people that just need the guidance. They just need somebody to help them. And to your point, I think there's a skill gap with most high-performing salespeople that doesn't just make you a good manager or leader, and it's a skill gap. And so it's, do you want to acquire that skill to build that thing, or do you not? But then it goes back to, how do you define success? Like being an amazing solo agent or having a team? Like, with what are you defining?
And what team looks like, right? So with the economy shifting the way it has, we were talking about the cost of living right before we started recording. Cost of living is high right now. And so what does it look like as a newer agent, or as an experienced agent, or as an agent right in the last third of your career, the last leg of your career? Yeah. But being able to then really look at, what is the skill gap, and how do you want to spend your time, and what's important to you? So I have a client in the Los Angeles, San Diego area. He lives in San Diego, does a lot of his work in Los Angeles, and had a team of 3 agents and 2 staff members, realizing he was going to need to produce a gross commission income of about $3 million in order to keep as much money as he wanted for himself and his family as a team. And really started to evaluate the activity that was going to take to do, and decided, I don't really want to work like that anymore. He's been in the business a long time, and he could make the same or more money by restructuring the whole operation. It's still a group. They still work together, but they're independent agents. The people who were staff members became independent contractors legitimately. They started their own businesses. And so now the cost structure of running the business is much lower.
Wow.
And the profit went up almost 10%. But the volume doesn't have to be anywhere near as high as $3 million in order to bring home the amount of money that he would like.
That's baffling to me, but incredible.
And this team had worked together 6 years in a different structure.
It's actually genius, and it makes sense. Like, I mean, for a business, there's only 3 ways for a business to make more money. And if you can do all 3, that's when you're doing amazing. But increase your price point, sell more, or decrease your costs, your overhead. And in restructuring, they're able to obviously cut the line item of costs. Employees in rent are always your 2 biggest expenses by far. Right. Employees are your number 1. And by restructuring, instant savings.
Yeah. And so then being able to still keep these relationships together, still have the leverage of delegation, but it was restructured in a way, was very thoughtful. It took us, I'm going to say 6 months to really work through the design and then the conversations and change the jobs and help everyone be successful in it. And it's working.
Shit, that's brilliant. I mean, and to kind of back up and give people context, you've been coaching top performers for over a decade, and you've been in the industry for over 2 decades.
Yeah.
And so like you are versed in this, and that is, I wish, you probably have it. I would love, honestly, I would love a PowerPoint presentation of the different team structures. And honestly, I think it would be really fascinating to see, like, for example, like 3 team structures with, let's say, 20 million in total sales volume, and then the bottom lines of each of the 3 and how they're structured. I think that's fascinating. And I think most agents don't even think about any of that, and they go, I need help. And they just start hiring people, and there's no thought of, this entire thing is a business. What's the most cost-effective way to build it?
Yes, and I can create that for you. So we could partner up on the kind of information that you think would be most helpful. But yes, and I have a client now who has about a $5 million GCI. Yeah. But they've been hiring as they needed, and they've been creating compensation as it happened. And so now I've come onto the scene to say, okay, let's look at this whole picture, because now we have to be able to really look at, if it's terrific if you want to keep doing 5 million or 6 or 7 million in GCI, but what if the economy shifted? Because once you start to hire people and build salary, and we're in California and we have labor laws that are really strong, and then we start to build in bonus structure, or if we also start to put in a percentage of sales.
I had a friend do that, and she wound up cutting a bigger check than she made, than her personal income that year.
Right. So it has to be thoughtful. It has to be very thoughtful, because ultimately, right, it's a personal business. You get to run it the way you want. You get to have the kind of expense structure that you want. But the millionaire real estate agent, thank you, Gary Keller, right, was one of the first people to publish a book that actually had some suggested budgets in there. Yeah. And if he says 11 to 13% of your gross commission income is what you should pay your people, your support. My number's a little bigger. I go 10 to 20%, depending on where you are on your growth curve.
Yeah.
But you start to hit 25, 30, 35% of people, and now you've got bonus in it, and now you're paying other people more than you're paying yourself. It can mushroom. Yeah. It can be fixed. It's very hard to take money back. You sometimes lose the people.
Yes. But I did learn really quick.
But you don't have to.
From that lesson is always put caps and end dates on everything,
so that it gets revised and it gets reviewed.
Well, just so it never like, it's, you get 2% of, every transaction until X amount of dollars. Yeah. And then it's like, then at least there's a safety valve. But if you don't put a safety valve in, you're just going to piss somebody off when you change the rules.
Well, yes. And from that perspective, right, then you start to mess with the culture, because this is something I teach my clients. Compensation structure is very similar to pricing a listing. Listings are about location, features, and the condition. And compensation is about location, the job responsibilities, and performance.
True. Good.
Very
good
similar.
Comparison. Yeah.
So if you can price property, you can work on what is the market rate of the position that you have as support for your business, right? And all of this factors into this conversation we're having about how do you spend the money well, right? To make money and to keep the money, because you want to be able to look at having people who work around you, whether they're a vendor or they're an employee or an independent contractor, that you want to be able to have it be at market rate, just like a property.
It's true. Yeah, I think it's fair. I think a big mistake that a lot of agents make when they hire is They don't want to fully commit, so they do this whole stupid percentage thing with everybody. But the problem is salespeople are excited about that because they're salespeople. That's how we're wired. We're excited to make more if there's more opportunity. But the safety and security people who run the back end of the business, they want security. They want to know it's an exact same amount every month, every week. And so it's, yeah, you have to cater to that personality type. I would love to have you talk about the different team structures and then the financial benefits of each with our private group. Because I think that group more than a lot of people have asked about hiring or scaling or growing teams. And none of them, because I just know these conversations, not none, I would say 90% have not considered the financial ramifications of the different structures and strategies. So I would love for you to,
terrific.
if you have that capacity. I'm not trying to put you in the hot seat.
Yeah, because it's part of the model in my business is workflow, teamwork, and finances. Yeah. And then more and more with my coaching clients, I'm going over their bookkeeping financial reports from QuickBooks with them once a month to be able to look at that. And we have a special session set aside to do that every month so that we can also just tag it. And depending, this is also something that we've learned over the years. It doesn't matter what condition your business is in right now.
It's a start point.
There's no shame. Look how successful you are doing it as a hot mess, or look how successful you are doing it, making a lot of money, or look how successful you are, giving all your money away to everybody else and not taking enough home. But bravo, you've made it through, you're doing what you're doing. So I think it's also really important that people recognize there's no judgment and no shame in where you are. It's a starting point, and then you get to consciously design it from there.
I get it. It's really, really hard to be that vulnerable and that exposed. But simultaneously, it's like going to the gym when you're out of shape. If that's your start point, there's literally only one direction.
Yeah.
Like your
you can only get better.
Like if you're doing follow-up photos or measurements, it's only going to get better. Great. It's great. Start it at the shittiest point because it's going to be easier to make it look better in the future. If you don't start, it'll never change. And you just have to, if you're not doing it, especially if you're not looking at your books, you're not looking at your P&L, you don't understand where your money's actually going, what you're spending, where it's going, you're kind of dead in the water.
Well, it leaves room for more fear. It leaves more room for uncertainty on the agent's part. And one of the things that's so important, I think, for each of us as an agent is that we are the calm in the storm for our clients.
Yes.
So we have to stand on solid ground. We can't have a bunch of fear swirling around for ourselves about, I don't really know how much money I made there. I don't really know how much that costs. I don't really know how much there is left after I pay the photographer. Those fear thoughts, we have to get rid of that so that you can stand on firm ground in your business and be able to focus on building your skills, looking for opportunity, and taking care of other people, right? That's what we do is we take care of all these clients, looking out for how can we best be a guide to help them make informed decisions. So this is now what we get to do for each other is to say, okay, you do not have to be alone in the swirl of running a real estate business. There are skills to attain. There, is a way in which to run the business, and you do get to make choices. I always tell my clients there's different ways to get in the pool, right? You can jump off the high dive and change everything. You can dump off the low dive, and make a smaller splash. But you can also walk down the steps into the pool. You don't have to do things drastically and dramatically. You can, start to look at your books, with one eye, and then be like, okay, and then you don't have to do anything about it once you look at it. You can then say, all right, well, I don't know, I like getting Starbucks every day, or I like bringing lunch into my team, or, I like leasing a really expensive car. Okay, this is your business. You can do what you want.
Yeah. And the little asterisk is just acknowledge where it's going. Don't hide from it. Just acknowledge it.
Yeah.
It sounds like you spend a lot of time working with people one-on-one, but it also sounds like you built a whole set of programs as well.
Yes, yes. I built training programs with, members of my team so that there's consistency, we have a starter program for how to put your business together. We have a program for how to train your assistant. We have a leadership program for how to build that skill gap, right? Of, okay, now I really do need to manage people, even if they aren't employees. So we have a leadership program. And then we also have how to onboard someone, an assistant in 90 days. So 90 Days to Thrive is our onboarding program.
Amazing.
Because there are these skill gaps, right, where you're not supposed to know how to do everything. Like, we're supposed to do it together.
I mean, and I think that's the other side of it, is there's supposed to be skill gaps.
Yeah, we're all learning together. It's the cool thing about real estate too, is that there's always something new to learn.
There is, and somebody like you who has the experience and essentially the solution. It's like, sure, you can sit with Google and try to figure it out and hobble together. Usually you'll get the right information, but it's in the wrong order. So like, have fun with that. Or you can just go to the person of like, here, let me take it apart for you. Let me show you how it works.
Yeah, because over the last 20 years, right, there was the high market, then there was the crash, and now we've had COVID, and now we're on some other side of the equation. Not sure where this, roller coaster is headed, but, we're on a different part of the amusement park.
Yeah.
And so you get to pivot as well and prepare for the fact that the market will keep changing. And how do we get your business ready for those changes?
Yeah, and I think that's you make a really great point, is it's never going to stop. Like, the market is always doing something wacky. And the agents who survived through COVID when it crashed were the ones who had the reserve. They had the budgets. They kind of knew where the money was going, and they knew how long they can hold it out for.
Yes.
But the ones who didn't, they left the business. And those are probably a lot of the dry licenses. They have zero because the license is active, but they're not actually full-time in the industry. They're somewhere or doing something else, is probably what's happening.
Yeah. And, the other thing that I sometimes encounter is a disillusionment because of disappointment in the industry.
How so?
A difficult deal, a difficult client, a generosity that was extended that, or you didn't get paperwork signed and someone decided, to buy a house from a listing agent when they walked in on an open house. Like, there becomes a disillusionment that can happen for agents if they don't have success, but they put in a lot of effort.
Interesting.
So what I also look at is, how can we learn from failure, number one, because you don't learn a lot from success. You learn a lot when things don't go well.
Sure. Yeah, when it's going great, you tend to party. When it's going bad, you tend to ponder.
And take credit for the fact that you did something terrific that made it great, right?
Exactly.
Like, now you're a piece of crap when it didn't go well, and now you're in failure. Yeah. But it's important to also recognize it's nice to be able to prevent some of the mistakes that might cause you to become disillusioned. Because it is a hard industry.
It is.
It is challenging, but it can be done. But you also can count on the fact that you're going to need to learn from other people. You're going to need resources so that you don't have to fall in every pit hole, right? You don't have to fall in every mistake that comes along. There are some ways to try to prevent that.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. I'm like reflecting back on my own life and experiences. It's really hard. When you eat shit a lot, I probably had at one point 4 million in deals fall through in like 3 months when the market was really bad and I was banking on them, and it was like literally one after another, and I was like, oh, this just sucks. But yeah, you're right. You kind of have to, you dust yourself off. You have to reevaluate.
Learn what you can.
Yeah, I think for me, it's like I lean heavily on sports, is just because I lost, that doesn't make me a loser. Like
Good.
you know, like if I was competing against another agent, like I was having a good day, they were having a better day. And you kind of like, I really have to work hard to reframe it, but I also lean on that. I have other experiences.
Yeah.
And so I can definitely see the need to lean on another person to remind you. Sometimes you just need that outside voice
Yeah.
to remind you.
And be able to put your business together then, right, to put your actions in place the way you want to, because it is the journey in some ways, right, that to make it as enjoyable as we can, to have a lot of gratitude and appreciation for the fact that we get to serve in this way, and to be able to know that as entrepreneurs, we can structure the business and run the business the way we want to. And it isn't the same, size that fits all. You also talked about that agents chase someone else's success. And that is something too I get to see as a coach, which is comparison, right, is the thief of joy.
It's so bad.
So the more that you're true to yourself about what's important to you, if you want to, not have listing appointments from 2:30 to 4 because you pick up your kids or you want to go to soccer, then okay, let's structure your business so that you have listing appointments and take buyers out other than from 2:30 to 4. It can be done. You might lose business along the way, but you'll have picked up the kids and gone to soccer. You'll still have had a great piece of your life. So I wish I had known that when I started. I would have enjoyed the first few years more.
Say more about that.
I felt like an OBGYN waiting for someone to call me that they were having a baby when I was first a real estate agent. I just felt like on duty all the time.
That is the best. Oh, that conjures such a very clear vision of what it feels like.
Right? I was like, oh my gosh, I had my phone, the texting, and I remember the day, right, of finally getting to write an offer for my buyers on a 2-unit building. And I had under my desk a baby shower gift, and I never got to go to the baby shower because I had to then, it was a long time ago now, I present the offer in person, and, and they got the deal, man. So I did my job well, but I wish I had, and I might not have been able to change that particular situation. Yeah. But I didn't know I could have boundaries. I didn't know that I could leave on my voicemail messages that I will return calls, from 4 to 6. And if you leave a message after 7, I'll get back to you tomorrow. I didn't know that I could set that up.
Yeah.
And thinking I had to be on 24/7, 365. And lots of agents still play that way. Yeah. It isn't necessary all the time in everyone's business. I'll say it that way.
Yeah. I agree. But I also think simultaneously, I fear that people hear that and they hear something else.
What do you think they hear?
I think there's I hear that, and I know because I've experienced it and I've missed those really important things. And I have the same similar regret of shit. I wish I didn't do that thing, or that could have waited. It's, it's not that big of a deal. But I think, and not everybody, but I think people simultaneously don't work hard enough for the most part. And I would say the 70% who didn't produce sales in some capacity could have worked not harder, but more efficiently. I think you probably screwed around on your phone too much. You probably stared at Instagram too long. And you probably could have taken that phone call at 7 o'clock, but you wanted to set boundaries. Whereas if you just did the right work at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you wouldn't have been bothered at 7 anyways. And so I think it's I just hope that it's not, I know the spirit of what you're saying and I appreciate it, but I hope it's not misinterpreted because I think for the most part, I think we can work more efficiently in the hours
and intentionally.
and intentionally.
Yes.
You know, it's like, yeah, social media is an amazing tool, but if you're just scrolling for an hour, it's bullshit and you're wasting time. If you've instead spent 15 minutes on it, but you're sending really thoughtful, engaging
Yes.
messages to agents to build out your referral network, that's a great
Yes.
use of 15 minutes. But if you just watched silly videos about cats and dogs, then that's a waste of time. And then thus you're now trying to make up time by answering the phone late at night, and then you're now setting boundaries because that's not what you do. Like that's when people like, I think it just, the structure of itself falls apart.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. And the being there for clients in a negotiation, being there for clients who are in a unique situation, right, where they need to talk to someone right away.
Yeah.
Yes, but those are exceptions. We don't have fire alarms all the time.
100%. And I think that's another problem with a lot of us do. And I did it myself, and it really took me a minute to kind of check myself. 90% of the time, well, this is a fun stat. Did you know 80% of all statistics are made up on the spot 90% of the time?
That's great.
But the majority of time, the deal's not blowing up. And if you do genuinely, I also genuinely feel that if a client's reaching out with questions, those are really concerns, and you didn't do a good enough job educating them to where you're at up to that point. And so that's on you, not on them. And so if they're reaching out to you at 8 o'clock at night, that's on you, not on them. And if it's not because the deal's blowing up, it's because you didn't structure the system correctly to educate them as to what's happening so they were prepared.
To give them peace of mind so they could be at rest at 8 o'clock at night.
Exactly. And so they can be decompressing at the end of the day and not worrying about whatever that thing may be. And so I really always think, you know, if you go back to systems and process, that's the one area I'm sure you can contest this because you've been in this industry in a long time. That's one area we neglect. And it's, if we just work on that thing, it helps so much of the process. And so rarely, I mean, I can probably count on one hand how many times I actually had to answer the phone at dinner to resolve a problem that was actually going to result in a failed closing if I didn't address it. I mean, it's very far and few between.
Yes. Yes. And it really is wonderful service, right? To be able to set expectations with clients, explain things so that they have peace of mind. And so then you also get some of your private time back because you haven't left them panicking to the point where now they feel they have to call you in order to get an answer. So imagine how much anxiety was built up before they even made the phone call.
Yes.
So when I have clients say to me, my phone is ringing all the time with people asking questions, I know that those systems are not in place to set
100%.
expectations.
Yeah.
Because while it's fun to, have the phone ringing all the time to a point, right, then it becomes like, now you can't get your job done because now you haven't set that up.
I'm curious, do you think that's also an addiction?
I do.
The agent who loves when they always get interrupted.
Yes, I have one right now. I'm really trying to work with her because it is like a dopamine addiction.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Like, haha, I solved that.
Yeah.
I'm the hero.
Yeah. And so it really is a nervous system adjustment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, to get your kicks from something else instead of that busyness, that ding, that text message, that not being able to focus.
Yeah. I wish I could remember the agent's name. It's a woman. She's on the East Coast is all I'm visualizing where she is, but I can't place her. But anytime a question comes up, she basically rallies it back to her team. And then they actually work on creating a blog post for the response. and a video for social media. And so they leverage heavily.
Yeah, they use it as fodder for their material.
Correct. But then there's patterns. That question's going to come up, like questions about the initial deposit are going to come up at a certain time in the continuum. They don't come up at closing, like they come at the beginning. And so then if the step before you give them either the video, like here's a 30-second explanation, or here's the blog, and it's you're one step ahead, and thus your phone's not ringing.
Yes, I think I can picture who that is.
I can't remember. I mean, you can ping me. I don't know if I would remember the name. I don't know. I have 150 episodes, and so sometimes people say things.
Right.
I know they
and
say
we both
it.
know like 2,000 agents and stuff.
Yeah, and I'm like, who said that? I'm always very impressed when I can actually remember where somebody's from and like
And put it all together in the puzzle. I know.
I'm
But we
actually-
appreciate them even when we can't remember all the details.
I'm fearing going to the retreat this year because I'm losing track of, I've met too many people, which sounds really weird, but I'm having trouble. I'm having trouble just kind of keeping track of all of this stuff in my head.
Yeah, I'm so happy to see you. I'm so happy to see you. Remind me of your name.
Yeah, that's a good way. Gosh, it's funny. It may have actually been Nina. I don't remember, but when I first got into the business, it was one of the prolific agents, and it might have been Nina 𝘠𝐿𝐺, who you worked with early on.
Yes. She was my break into show business. Yeah.
Which is like, kudos. Like that,
it was fantastic.
That's like tippy toe top shelf of agents. She's like the agent's agent. But she would use it's so nice to see you. Not nice to meet you.
Nice to see you. Just in case.
And then this way, it just kind of took away. If you knew them, if you didn't know them, you forgot them. You may have forgotten them. You don't remember their name. It's nice to see you.
Yeah. Politicians in Hollywood must also have this issue, right? It's a lot of people.
I know, right? Yeah, they must. This has been really fun. I really always appreciate our conversations, and I love the way that you think about the business because it pushes me to think differently about the business. And reflecting back on that earlier part, I genuinely think it's a massive flaw with our whole industry. But I genuinely feel to be an agent, there should be an apprenticeship. And you really need to work directly with a performing agent.
It makes a big difference.
Huge. Because I think, again, the most important person in all of this whole thing is the client who is investing a significant amount of their money into this investment that they're entrusting.
Time, energy, trust.
And they need this person to facilitate it. And thus you should have the journey person guiding the apprentice through the experience, and there should be more than 3 transactions. It should be a whole series, but then a whole series of things that need to happen for that to happen. And I genuinely feel if that were the case, that would help mitigate the 70% who sold 0 last year. It would really heavily cut that down.
Yes. Well, and so we want them, right, all to be as successful as they want to be. And to also protect, right, the public and and all the clients, that they have a skilled agent, right, who has great resources and is going to be able to guide that process well. And for the agents to be able to really build a terrific career, because it is a wonderful business and a wonderful career. And there are ways to learn how to do it, and then you can, craft it specifically the way you want it.
The first year sucks, and you just got to get through it. Like, it's just, there's no 2 ways around it.
Build skill and get out there.
Yeah, that's basically it. Go make friends is the moral of the story. Kathleen, this was amazing. What is the best way for somebody to come find you if they want to pick your brain and learn more about your coaching program?
𝐾aMBIUM.com, and 𝐾aMBIUM spelled like on the screen. 𝐾aMMBIUM.com is my website. And my phone number is 802-546-1303. You can talk or text. Send me an email. There's also a button for a free consultation on the website, Kathleen@𝐾aMBIUM.com. And I'm happy to entertain and talk about what it is that someone needs and where they are and how I think that my business and myself can help them.
Oh, amazing. I didn't realize you can actually get a free session on your website. I'll make sure that we put that in the show notes below.
Okay, thank you. I always appreciate you. Thank you for the service that you provide. It's great to know you.
Oh, it's my pleasure.